it's Erin. Welcome back to the last video in our series on marriage. And this one is all about communication. And this one is huge. My husband and I have found throughout our married life that if we have a disagreement about something, or we end up like feeling frustrated or just like not heard or misunderstood, everything comes down to communication. And chances are that what happened was somebody said something and one of us misinterpreted it completely different than how the person intended it. So communication is huge. And I still remember in our marriage counseling, our pastor saying to us that communication is one of the biggest things that will either make or break a relationship. So, and I grew up in a house where people communicated all the time. My parents talked about everything. So that's naturally how I grew up, and I think that's a benefit. Unfortunately, not everybody has that. Some people grow up in a home where things are pushed underneath the rug. They are just not addressed, not talked about, and that's not healthy. So I want to talk to you today about communication. And one of the best illustrations that I ever heard was from a book called Love and Respect. So if you've not read through that book or done that study with your spouse, I highly recommend that you do the Love and Respect book or seminar training. But here is one of the basic concepts, one huge thing I took away from that men talk through a blue megaphone and have blue hearing aids, and women talk through a pink megaphone and have pink hearing aids. For example, if a woman were to say, I have nothing to wear, right? They go into their closet, they're trying to go out for date night, and they're like, man, I have nothing to wear. Another woman will hear that and know that she means she wants to go shopping, right? She wants to go shopping. That's what it means. She means she has no clothes that she wants to wear and she wants to go shopping. Now, if a man walks into his closet and says, man, I've got nothing to wear, it means that he needs to do laundry. Do you see how that same statement of, I have nothing to wear, means two completely different things to men as it does to women? All right? So we have to remember that God wired us differently on purpose. We are equals, but we are different. And so we have to remember that sometimes what our spouse says and how we interpret it is not how they meant it. All right? Or not how we interpreted it. So sometimes Wes and I will be talking about something and I will like get all frustrated, and I will have to remember, sometimes if I'm smart enough, I'll remember quick enough to be like, okay, from what you just said, this is how it made me feel, this is how I interpreted it. Is that what you meant? And most of the time he'll be like, no, that's not what I was getting at all. You know, so for example, this is like such a basic example, but the other day, I had some stuff out on the counter, and Wes really likes a clean kitchen, and I do my best to clean up, you know, but I had some stuff out and I just hadn't gotten away to it. And he just said, hey, are you done with these things? I'll put them away. Well, I interpreted that as, you're not cleaning up fast enough. I want to take care of, you know, clean up your mess and take care of this. That's not what he meant. He goes, I'm just going to get in the fridge to get some stuff out. I was just thinking I'd help you out. So it could take something as silly as that to think like, well, he doesn't think I'm doing a good enough job. That's not what he said, but that's how I interpreted what he said. So again, it's a very basic example, but those go back to show you that communication, depending on how the person says it, we read into those things. So we have to be very clear before you get all hot and bothered about something. I highly recommend you say, if you can think about it, because I know it's not always easy in the moment, but maybe even later say, the reason I got upset was because you said whatever, and this is how I interpreted that. Is that really what you meant? So here's what I want you to remember. When you're saying things, two things. One, hopefully your spouse has the best intention for you. Hopefully they're not trying to make you mad on purpose. So you have to remember the intent on how things are being said. Sometimes I will actually say to my spouse, do you really think I was trying to hurt you on purpose? Do you think I would say that because I was trying to hurt you? Or could it be that this is really what my train of thought was? Okay, so sometimes you have to give your spouse the benefit of the doubt. Try to remember that they're probably not intentionally trying to hurt your feelings, and ask for clarification on really what it is that they meant. The other thing that I heard that I thought was just so true, and I know I struggle with this, is my tone of voice. So when, let's say you say something to somebody, and this goes for just even beyond your spouse, okay? This can go for any family member, friend, any kind of relationship. If somebody responds back to you defensively, it's because of the tone of voice you used and how you propositioned whatever you just said. So think about how people are responding to you. If somebody responds to you defensively or in an anger, it means something in the way that you just said something made them believe that you were upset, and they are instantly going to be on the defensive. So again, think about how you are saying things, and I'm like so guilty of this. My husband will always say to me, well, in the tone of your voice, it led me to believe, that you were angry or upset or whatever. And so I have to work on my tone. But that's something I try to keep in mind. If I hear him say something back to me defensively or angry, I have to try to remind myself, okay, what did I just say to him? And how can I clarify that's not what I was trying to get at? So that's one of the things for communication. So I hope that helps with some of the initial things as far as how easily it can be to misinterpret what the other person says. And then how easily maybe we can get back on track without it blowing up into something big, just saying, okay, what did you really mean by that? And, figuring out how they responded back to you with their, if they were defensive or whatever. The other couple of things I would say is you never let the sun set on a problem, okay? So I understand that sometimes when I'm angry, I will tell him, look, I need 5 minutes to cool my jets. Because usually in the heat of a moment, I am like, Lord, you got to tell him that he is wrong. And I am not going to say that I'm sorry. And I'm so adamant about my stance on whatever the topic is, however silly it may be. But I'm so stubborn in the moment. But then I say, if we come back in 5 minutes, and usually I have 5 minutes to breathe, I have 5 minutes to relax, to pray, to ask the Lord to show me where I need to say that I'm sorry. Because even though I may think I'm still right about the main topic, I am sure I did something within the course of the discussion that I should ask for forgiveness for. So I ask the Lord for those things. And then we resolve quickly within, 5-10 minutes. Both my husband and I are people who want resolution. Neither one of us like to be at odds with each other. And so that never goes long for us. So I'm not sure how that is in your marriage, but I will encourage you that if you need a cool off period, I get it. I totally get it. But put a time limit on it. Say, I need 5 minutes to cool down, and then I would like to further discuss this. But do not let the sun set on the problem. That is biblically based, and it's because when you do that, you give the devil a foothold inside your marriage, and you do not want that. All right? So always try to resolve issues before the sun sets on a problem, or it might be an issue that needs multiple days to communicate, but at least get to a place where you both know that we're going to pick this discussion up and we're going to continue it. And it might not be something that can be resolved overnight, but you need to try to get at a place of peace with your spouse before the sun sets, because you don't want to let the sun set on a problem. You always want to fight fair, meaning if there have been past sins and things that have gone on in other arguments, you do not bring them up again. You do not say, well, last week when you did X, Y, and Z, you can't do that. Okay? You need to make sure that you're fighting fair. You don't bring up things that have been gone in the past or things that have been forgiven or things that have been moved on from. They can be forgiven, maybe not forgotten, but you don't bring them up again. If they have been forgiven, they need to be removed from any future arguments. The other thing my husband and I always said is, my husband said to me, do not wait 2 weeks to tell me something I did that bothered you. He's like, if I did something that bothered you, he goes, just tell me in a nice manner, sooner. So you don't let it build for 2 weeks before you explode. And then all of a sudden, they don't take out the trash and you explode on them and they have no idea why. It's because you've been building all this stuff for 2 weeks of things that they did wrong. And every day you're just adding the tally marks, right? This goes back to yesterday's video when I talked about having the gratitude journal. All right. Because then you're building up positive things about your spouse versus the negative things. So if you can, try to make sure that you have a time to talk with your spouse and not in front of children, which I can be guilty of at times, but talk to them individually. Be like, hey, this happened today and it really bothered me. And you might want to wait to a point where you're not as angry about it in the moment to actually discuss it with your spouse. But Don't let those things go unresolved, and make sure that you're fighting fair. The other thing that I wanted to say about that is remove the words always and never. And that one can be hard. And because always and never are never true. If you follow that at all. But you don't want to say to your husband, well, you always forget to take out the trash, or you never do anything with the kids like you say you're going to, or you never plan the date nights like you promised, because those statements aren't true. Okay? So you want to remove always and never from any kind of discussion or argument. You can say, it makes me feel, because they cannot argue with your feelings. You can feel a certain way, but you don't always want to say always or never, or their actions. You want to put it back on like, this is how it makes me feel, and do your best to say it in a calm manner. And I'm rolling my eyes at that because I'm not always good at that either. So I want you to know these tips that I'm giving you doesn't mean that my husband and I are perfect at these things. It doesn't mean we never fight or argue. In fact, it was like last weekend, we got in the car to go do a family outing. And my husband and I somehow ended up in an argument about the trash can. No, about the sleds. It was about the sleds because I put them away. I thought I cleaned them up enough. He was not happy with how I took care of it. And it was no big deal. But even our daughter said, Mom, Dad, can you guys not fight about that? We want you guys to get along. And it's like, we reconciled and it was fine. But we all get in those little tiffs. It happens. But then we did make sure that we reconciled in front of the children. And we told them, look, guys, you're going to have disagreements. It's okay. Mommy was trying to respect Daddy. She just didn't do it as well as he would have liked, or whatever the situation was. It's not a big deal. It's silly to think now we were fighting over the sleds, right? But those little things come up and they happen. So here's another thing. Do you argue in front of children? And I've heard a lot of things back and forth about this, and I think it truly depends on what's going on. We were arguing over the sleds, okay? Our kids heard that. We did reconcile. We told them in front of them, because in my opinion, with some of those little things, they need to see that a marriage isn't perfect. They need to see that there will be disagreements, and they need to see that it will be reconciled. Now, we have told our kids from the very beginning that we will never be divorced, that we will disagree, we will have disagreements, but we will reconcile, and there was no such thing as divorce within our marriage. So our kids know that. For me as a kid growing up, my parents told me that it was the best thing ever, because I still remember as a kid hearing my parents argue sometimes at night. I didn't like it, but I knew that my parents would never separate. And it taught me that it's okay to have disagreements, but you need to make sure that you're reconciling those disagreements. Now, the kinds of things that we get in little arguments, if you will, about are not major issues. If there is something major going on, then yeah, maybe you need to do that behind closed doors. And you need to make sure that there is no, you're not speaking ill of each other, you're not name calling, you're not using cuss words at each other, you're not hitting each other. If any of that is going on, absolutely do not do that in front of children. But I'm talking about just little disagreements here and there. Kids need to see, in my opinion, kids need to see how that is reconciled. Okay, they need to know that that's normal. My kids get in arguments with each other all the time. They got to know that that's normal. We try to walk them through that with them within the sibling realm as well. They need to know it also happens with adults and how to deal with that, because they're going to deal with that their whole life. So I hope that helps with the communication aspect of this. I would love to hear feedback or any thoughts that you guys have on communication, or if there's things that you have learned that have helped you along the way within your marriage and within communication. A couple resources I want to give you if you're not familiar already. Podcasts on your phone is awesome. Go search for Focus on the Family. They have some specifically on marriage. There's also a podcast called Legendary Marriage. And I know I was actually interviewed on their podcast before, and they talk all about marriage, also from a biblical standpoint. And I know there are tons of other podcasts that you could look up and watch and listen to about marriage. Okay, so I'm sure there are a ton, even if you just go to your podcast app and type in marriage. But anything like that you can do to help learn more and improve on your marriage is going to be a wonderful blessing to both you and your husband. Okay, so that's what I have for you on communication. I'm so excited to do this 3-part series with you. I would love any feedback that you have, any thoughts. Again, I will be sending you out an email just following up from this, and I hope to hear back from you. I'm super excited to be communicating with some of you on these topics. So you guys have a great day, and I will talk to you soon.